Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. So we hear about disasters. Like just this morning, I was hearing, I think there's been 6 different earthquakes in just the last week in all these different places. And so disaster is something where sometimes we say, this is never going to happen to us. But guess what? It probably will. And how prepared are you? So today my guest is Jennifer Hiller, and she is going to talk to us about disasters and how to prepare and why we should prepare. So Jennifer, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Heller, and I've been an entrepreneur since I think the age of 12. I started my first business, crocheted goods pop-up at 12 and tried to sell it to, my mom's friends. I actually sold my first website to my mom's friend in high school when the internet started. So I've just worked for myself my entire life and been doing all sorts of different ventures. And I had my first kid in 2016, and immediately that summer, my husband's aunt and uncle lost their home in the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa. And Santa Rosa is like a city, And so I was suddenly like, oh no, I have to prepare my family for disasters. I have a family now, and I really care about what happens to this little tiny kid of mine. And I set out to look at FEMA and look at ready.gov and look at prepper websites. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a huge rabbit hole full of like boring things to do and full of crazy advice. Just like because you go, I don't know, you hear about preppers, right? And there's this kind of negative connotation like, oh, we're going to hoard guns and we're like going to battle it out during end times. And like, that's not my way of doing things, right? Like, I like community. I like my friends. The idea of being alone with my family forever with our little hoard of food and whatever, that sounds terrible. I'd much rather be there with 100 other people. And, so I set out to demystify the disaster preparedness process and to create a guide that was full of practical, achievable tasks that a normal, well, what I think of as a more normal mom would want to do, I mean, I don't think a normal mom is going to be stockpiling arms, but she's certainly going to make a list of common locations and write down some contact information. So that's what I did. I've been a designer my whole life also, so it was really fun to incorporate fun design and silly illustrations throughout to try to entertain people because it's a very boring subject.
Yeah, but it is so necessary. So in my faith, like we're hounded about this. And so we have these self-reliance classes and we have like, here's your checklist, here's your year supply of food, here's this. So for me, I've been raised with this. But I was sitting in a convention or a conference just this past weekend, and I won't say who it is because I won't, because what he said to the girl in the audience, but he's basically like, yeah, you don't like guns? That's okay, because during the apocalypse, I'm going to come to your house and bam, 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 and I'm taking your food and bam, bam, bam. I'm like, oh my God. And he didn't mean it like seriously, but honestly, he probably does. And that's going to happen. People are going to come and they're looking for the stockpiles because of this natural disaster. But if you can prepare and I love that you said, I want a community. I don't want just my family, like The Quiet Place, right? That movie.
Yeah.
That there should be a community because we all should be prepared because honestly, we have been warned for a very, very long time. And
Yes.
we know that there's things that are, at least I believe, in the way I've been raised, that it is going to happen, where we are going to need to have a food supply. We are going to need to know how to live off the land again. I think it's interesting that your first child prompted this.
Yes.
That's the mama coming out in you.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because I waited. So I was older when I had my first kid. So I'd been in business for a while, and then I ultimately left my job in 2007. And so it had been 9 years that I'd been in business, and I kept waiting to be in a position. So I had a design business marketing and design, and I kept waiting to be in a position where I'd get to take a maternity leave, right? But as a solopreneur with like 1 to 2 employees, that's a very hard thing to do.
Mhm.
And I wound up really looking at what was going on in my world and realizing that I had grown to resent my business because it was keeping me from having a kid.
Wow.
And so then I just did it. I had my first kid. I went back to work 2 days later after giving birth. And
Oh my
I,
gosh.
yeah, I mean, I only worked 5, 10 hours for the first couple months. But yeah, I mean, it was really, really rough. But finally, I had my family. Finally, I had what I really wanted. And I will tell you that I have always been a recovering perfectionist. I won't share it because it's not ready or whatever. And the act of birthing really changed that for me because as much as I wanted to give up and go home, I could not. And I had to get that baby out. And so all of a sudden, after having him, I was like, oh my gosh, all these projects that were unfinished, like I have to finish them. Like it was this amazing kind of transition where suddenly it was like, okay, I'm going to finish what I start instead of just leave it halfway done. And it taught me also to stop micromanaging my team because I was very much like, oh, we should move this pixel to 10 pixels left. And now I'm just like, whatever, it's great because when I have 2 kids, and now I'm just like, I work, I come home, and then I enjoy my kids.
So this is the part that when you talk about you're like I'm perfectionist and then I don't care. It's the same thing if you have a lot of kids like I do, right? And so I'm a realtor and I have these clients and they're even siblings. So one client that this is like their very first child, she just gave birth and now we're gonna go look for a home because they want this new home. And this little baby, like they're taking him to every room with them, like lugging the car seat around
Oh
and
my
going
gosh.
upstairs, going downstairs. And I'm thinking, which I'm never gonna say this, but like you can leave the baby here. Like nobody's gonna take her. We're like in the same house and it's right here, because
Yes.
we're small houses. And they're just super, super protective. But then the next one, the sister, who it's their fourth child, I didn't even know this, and I was petrified once I found out. But they're leaving the baby in the car with the van running while they're going and looking at the house, and not for a short amount of time. And when I found that out, I'm like, oh. And so
Wow.
it's interesting how motherhood changed you, not just from the first one, but to the
Yes.
fourth one. And it could be a difference of the siblings. But my point is, like, my first ones, they were always, their hair was always perfect, their face was always perfect, their clothes were always perfect. And the last one, I took a picture one time with my husband. He showed up with them, and they looked like they were playing like the Rugrats from Charlie Brown or whatever. It was the funniest picture. I'm like, why would you ever let some child go out in public like that? Like her face was destroyed, her like clothes didn't match, her hair was all over because it hadn't been brushed. And it's just interesting to see kind of how we change and our personalities change once we have children.
And our priorities, right? I mean, because when you have just the one, it's easy to want to spend time making them perfect. But as soon as you have more than one, you don't have the time for that. It's impossible.
No, it's true. And the people that I think they're on like their 18th kid, like you are a saint.
That's amazing. I can't imagine. I just can't even imagine being pregnant all the time like that. You know, you're just constantly pregnant.
So let's talk about your business and then we'll talk more of what your business is. But getting
Yeah.
started, what did you do?
Well, so I have 2 businesses. I have Artsy Geek, my design business, and then here comes Apocolypse, my disaster preparedness business, which is very much a little tiny baby that I'm trying to get on the road to being a big kid, right? Artsy Geek is actually 15 years old, so she's a teenager, and she walks and talks and has her own life, you know? I mean, I have clients that I've had now for 10 years and they keep coming back for our good work. So I always use the metaphor of a tumbleweed for a business, like, and this is a little weird, but like in the very beginning, it's just very tiny and you're propelling it, but eventually it does become its own thing in the world. And now I think Artsy Geek would continue even if, well, I mean, with my second child, I actually took a maternity. So I got that. And that was the result of having the first kid because it like I said, it taught me to let go of details, which allowed me to actually bring in real support to support me and give me this maternity that I'd always dreamed of. So that was really wonderful. Um, Which one were you asking about?
No, I want to go back for a second because
Yeah.
I've interviewed a lot of people, like a
Yeah.
lot of people. And I think you'll be almost my 150th episode when it's,
Wow.
no, my 200th episode, right? And I have never once heard a business owner refer to their business as a baby or as a teenager. Like I love those analogies because I start thinking, wait a second, and how she's developed a life. And you even said she, like this business,
Yes.
it's an entity, right? It's like a person. And I think that if we were to actually think about our businesses like that, that it does have a personality. And what type of personality? Is it the personality that you want it to have, or is it becoming rebellious? Like I took my
Yeah.
daughter to the doctor yesterday. It's probably too much information. She's under 12, right?
Mhm.
But I was gone for the weekend and she was like texting me about her heart. Mom, my heart hurts. It's doing weird things. Okay, that doesn't
Oh,
make me
no.
feel good as I live in Utah. I'm in Florida, right? So it's taken me 12 hours to get there because of all the change in flights. And so she's telling me these things. So I'm telling my husband, like, hey, what's going on with her? Oh, she's fine. You know, that's a dad thing.
Right.
So I get back and now he's concerned because I'm home so I can take her to the doctor now, right? So I did. And we found out she's dehydrated. There's a lot of health issues with this one. And so she had to pee in a cup. Well, she's never done that before. So she's very, very nervous and she doesn't want to and she's embarrassed and blah, blah, blah. And this personality came through that I've never seen before and not one that I really was proud of.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
think that's my point is in a business, are you proud of the personality that your business has taken on? Are you proud of the environment, basically? Are you proud of what you've built, or do you need to change that? And so,
Yeah. I love that
I've never
check-in.
thought
Yeah.
of that.
Well, so one of the services we offer at Artsy Geek is brand storytelling, and and we also do logos and brand visuals. And I always think that, and I don't know where I got this, but I always think of every business as an entity out there that walks and talks because, well, like you're a realtor, right?
Yeah,
And so you are the face of the company.
yeah,
And so you're interfacing directly, but other people are helping you, right? You like realtors always have a lot of people behind them that help them.
yeah.
And it can be very hard to stand up for your boundaries or to deal with problematic or challenging clients, especially if your business is you, right? If you identify as being your business, then it's very hard to sometimes make those hard decisions that are what's right for your business
Yeah.
and maybe also what's right for you as a person because you are the business. And I mean, I'm an eldest daughter, so I'm a people pleaser, right? So I'm like, oh, my clients have to always love me. And then they walked all over me for 9 years. And then finally, when I had my first child, I started standing up for boundaries. But the point, so we actually just did this brand storytelling work with a realtor here in the Bay Area. And she found it extremely helpful because we gave her business a personality. And even though she is her
Mhm.
business now has how it talks, how it walks, how it looks. And so she can think of it, even though it is inseparable from her,
Mhm.
but it is this separate thing. And one of the things we do in brand storytelling is create a brand vision. Where are you going in 5 years? And it's always extremely lofty. And our clients are always like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. Oh, it's so inspiring, right? And it gets you out of bed in the morning and it helps you to get through those tough times because we all know that motherhood is like a grind. I mean, I love the title of your show, Unbreakable, because it's really tough. I mean, there have been so many months where I don't know where payroll's coming from, or like I can't pay myself and I pay my team instead. And the economic climate changes and your business has to adapt. I mean, it never stops.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think that I'm going to use the realtor analogy. You hire a realtor so you have a third party, unbiased person that can negotiate on your behalf. And I think that once you can separate yourself, especially as like a solopreneur or someone that's building their company, I love that if you can separate yourself from the business, like, I'm sorry, you want me to take how much? 1% to sell your house? I don't think you understand the time involved. So my company, like that's not feasible because it's
Right.
not profitable because the time that's going to take away from other opportunities for 1% is not worth it, right? And I'm giving analogies, but I love that. So now you're thinking more from a business perspective than a personal perspective.
Right. And business is always very personal, especially like as women,
Yeah.
like we feel
Oh, yeah.
our emotions. We're actually in touch with them, not like a lot of men. So it can be easy
Mhm.
to get upset. And if you do give your business that personality, I think it does create just a little bit of business of distance between you two to allow you to make some better decisions.
I love that. So how do you get your clients for either business? How do you get them?
Yeah, well, so with Artsy Geek, it's all referrals. It's amazing, and mostly repeat. I mean, we have been very, very lucky to have just a lot of repeat business, and that's really great. And I'm looking at, okay, well, what does the future look like, especially with AI coming into creative industries and messing with our flow and our offerings, where are we going? And that's actually one of the reasons why I started Here Comes Apocalypse was I wanted to create a business that was more scalable. So I wanted to create a product-based business that I could sell directly to consumer.
Mhm.
And the people that I was hoping to reach are liberal moms in cities or in suburban areas, right? And because I think that in the more Republican era, section of the country, people are more prepared. They're more into the
Oh, yeah.
prepper mentality. And my goal has always been to help non-preppers prepare. And I thought that I'd be able to use Facebook and Instagram advertising to reach them. And it has been a super challenge. I'm not gonna lie, like I've had wonderful, wonderful reviews. I had a first responder say that the system that I created is the only system that he's found that's thorough and that he absolutely gives his highest recommendation that the families use this system to prepare themselves for disasters. But the reality that I'm confronted with is that nobody wants to. And I didn't want to, right? That's why I created this guide. And so it really breaks it down step by step. And there's like fun graphics. And so you really just go page by page and fill it out, and it guides you every step of the way. So you don't have to figure out what to do. All the resources are so like, okay, so early on, I was doing all this research. I spent 3 years researching this and read a giant pile of books. And I went to ready.gov and they were like, use our form to create a plan. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to use this form to create a plan. And I click on their button, make a plan. And their form is literally a text box that says, enter your plan. And I'm just like, excuse me? You didn't give me an example. You didn't tell me what a good plan is. You didn't give me anything to make me successful at filling in this text box, right? You just gave me a text box and said, "Here's your enter your plan and we're going to email to you." Like, what? That doesn't help me at all, right? And so it does feel to me like, yes, the gear is very easy. You do some research, oh, I want a generator, I want some extra food, that part is easy, but the actual coordination of logistics for a family is very challenging because especially as you get larger families, right? You've got kids scattered across the town. I mean, maybe you homeschool and you're all always at home. Well, that's pretty easy.
Mhm.
But for a lot of us, my husband works out of the house, I work out of the house. My kids are in two different locations, and my husband moves around for work. So he's in different places. So we need a plan for all of that.
Yeah.
And especially as we look at aging infrastructure in our country, bridges, roads, all of that is unfortunately vulnerable to impact from extreme weather. And so if you take what having alternate routes to all of your designated meeting places can be very important. You see a lot in these disaster scenarios. The roads just get totally clogged up. It's terrifying.
Well, and I think I was sitting at this conference next to a lady from Kentucky, and she said that just this year alone, they've had 54 tornadoes. I'm like, why do you still live there? Well, because it
Yes.
only impacted us like one time, right? And I think, okay, let's think about this because, again, my beliefs, it's coming. We don't know
Yeah.
when, but it's going to come. And so in Utah, it can be an earthquake. We experienced that a couple years ago. In California, earthquakes and fires. Fires are a lot.
Right.
I almost moved to California, and where my home was, I would have been working 40 minutes away as a single mom. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that because I'm
Yeah.
not going to be that far away from my kids if there's an emergency. And so stayed in Utah. But you have the whole East Coast, it's freezing. rain and it's hurricanes and so Florida the same thing, Panhandle area, the Gulf. And so I think it doesn't matter where you go in the country, there's some type of a natural disaster. And it's interesting to me that your demographic or your niche is liberal, um, because the conservative are more prepared. And so you're trying to reach that person. And so it's interesting, like, how do you reach them? Because California is a perfect example. We're how long? 6 months? It's been 6 months over that. And none of the houses are being rebuilt yet because of the
Right.
bureaucracy of
Right.
the government. I'm sorry. California,
Yes.
I grew up there, love you, but come on.
No, absolutely. Well, I mentioned that my husband's aunt and uncle lost their home in 2017. And then 4 years later, my husband's parents lost their home in a different wildfire. So these are two brothers in the same family that lost their home. And my father-in-law, he had built his home with his two hands when Will, my husband, was a baby. He was an infant and they were building this home like literally around him.
Wow.
And so it burned down. And like you go to, so this was 2016. So it's now 2025. I'm sorry, 2027. It was 2017 and now it's 2025. You go to where my husband's uncle lives and it's only partially rebuilt.
Yeah.
It's been 9 years.
Yeah.
And we are losing communities faster than we can rebuild them. And so we're looking at a future of housing scarcity. Just we already have housing scarcity in this country, and we're looking at much more because of the way that extreme weather is wiping things out. I mean, you look at Asheville, North Carolina, nobody expected that storm to land there. And so nobody was prepared. And that is, especially as you look at like, oh, why are you in Kentucky? Well, I mean, I think you have a good point. There's nowhere you can go where you're safe from this sort of thing. And as things change, we're getting extreme weather where you didn't normally expect it. Here, just in California, last winter, there was a teeny tiny tornado
Mhm.
in Santa Cruz, in
Yeah.
Scotts Valley. And like, I'm just like, holy crap, none of us have basements. Like, we are not prepared at
So true.
all
Very
for
true.
that. That's really out there that you might have a tornado here in California. So I do think that like all bets are off, and I am interested in what's going to happen, and I'm very interested in reaching people to help them prepare. I do think that my system does help people who do have some preparedness, because it helps you to formalize your plan. This is the I Will Thrive manual, which comes with the disaster playbook, and you fill it out as you go through the playbook, and it's just filled with all the written information that you could need. Like, so here, physical pictures of your family,
Mhm.
because we live our lives on the cloud. Most of us don't have recent physical pictures. You want to have a recent physical picture. If you need help finding your family or finding your pets, you want a picture of that. Logging where your water and gas shutoffs are. I mean, lots of us know that very well, but in the urban areas that we
And
don't.
not, I want to add to that. You need a
Yeah.
special tool to be able to turn off that gas meter. And
Yes.
I have the
Yes.
tool, I give it to all my clients, but like people just don't know. And it's
And
because,
right here, I have where is that located? Where is that tool located?
yeah.
Write it down so you don't forget, because you make these plans and then life goes on and you don't use them for a while, which is why it's so important to write it down.
Well, and flashlights, making sure you have working flashlights and you start. And I mean, it's just little things like that that people don't do because it's not on their mind right now. Like
Right.
afterwards, going back to California, where all the insurance companies left, so most of the people didn't have insurance on their houses. It's just,
Yes.
and I know, okay, we had an earthquake, so why don't I get earthquake insurance? Oh, it's too expensive. Or is it really? How expensive is your home?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think that we really, I love that you're doing this because it is so necessary. And I love that you're trying to reach a population that seems a little bit more hard-headed
Yeah.
or
Or
maybe,
just distracted, different
yeah.
different priorities. I mean, a lot of people in this country are barely getting by, right? And like having this space to even think about disasters is a privilege and a luxury that a lot of people can't afford. And so I'm currently going through CERT training, so Citizens Emergency Response Training, and it's all about the reality that first responders in a large disaster scenario, first responders will not get to you quickly.
No.
And so citizens need to be trained. And so for that reason, I really believe that it's our civic responsibility to take care of our of ourselves if we can, right? And so have some first aid and CPR knowledge, have your written stuff so that you're not taxing the power grid more or trying to communicate in a way that isn't going to work during that disaster scenario.
Yeah. And let's just take it, we're moms.
Yes.
I wonder how many moms in America are CPR certified. Because let's be honest, if we have a child that something's happening to them, why would we not get CPR certified? And me included, right? Like I took it
Right.
in junior high, but why would we not do that to be able to save our children? And I think it's the same type of thing because that'll never happen. I'm never going to have that issue. But you know what? It does happen. And if my daughter really did have heart problems where something was happening until the 911 they came here, then yeah, we're in trouble. And
Right.
so I think that, I mean, starting where I love that you talk about that, becoming certified, and so that you're, as a civic duty, are prepared for that. Those are beautiful things I think that I haven't always thought about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Okay, I can't believe that our time's already up,
I
but
know.
I do want to ask you as a mom, um, they're still pretty young though, right?
3 and 8. Yes.
So I want you to imagine yourself sitting on a park bench and a 9 month pregnant woman, first time mom, comes and sits next to you and you start talking. So you have your 8-year-old, your 3-year-old. What advice would you give her unsolicited, right? Because we know everything as a first time mom, but what advice would you give her if it could be anything?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would say to prioritize you, prioritize who you are. I really felt like when my first baby came, I was like, wait, who am I? Where do I end and where does this baby begin? Like, it was like we're connected. And then as he kind of grew, I found myself rediscovering who I was. And I was new, right? Because I was me, but I was now a mom. And I think especially moms can really lose themselves into their kids and not prioritize their own well-beings. And I think one of the best things we can do, especially as women in this country, is to model standing up for ourselves, being true to ourselves, and having our own lives and interests while supporting our kids and while doing everything motherhood asks of you, because it's easy to forget that.
And I heard again, it was a really good conference. And the speaker said something to me. He said, with your kids, you want to take them out to dinner and you want to pay for dinner every single time. He goes, stop doing that. And he goes, the reason why is because if your child, and it could be a business partner, it could be a client, I don't care, but we'll talk about children. If your child, you go out to dinner and they start to just expect that you're going to pick up the bill, they might start to resent you if they're older and they can't do stuff. And he said, so what you need to do is build competence, make them pay, because competence creates confidence. And I
Mm,
love that because, if you're constantly doing things for them and you're not taking time for yourself, they don't appreciate it until they probably have kids themselves. And I think that's the thing is that they're not creating competence or confidence because you're doing everything for them because you're trying to help, but you're not
right.
helping. You're actually hindering. They don't have the confidence. And I spoke to a single mom client of mine yesterday, and she goes, I would love to buy this house for my son, but he won't let me. He won't let me help them. Like none of my boys will let me help them. And I just thought, wow, you are a good mom. They have confidence because they have confidence. And so
Yeah.
I think that we as women, it's okay to take time for ourselves because you're being an example that you don't have to drain yourself thin and empty your bucket because
Yeah.
you have to be able to fill it and you have to be able to do things. So that's great advice. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, so quickly, our listeners wanted to find you for either one of your companies. How would they do that?
Yes. So for design and marketing, it's artsygeek.com, ARTSYGEEK, where form meets function, where art and competence meet. And for Here Comes the Apocalypse, it's herecomesapocalypse.com. And it's a joke. I've got a dark sense of humor, right? I hope that we don't ever have to live through a real apocalypse, but I also think of an apocalypse as just a life-changing event, and losing your home, definitely a life-changing event. And even just living through a disaster can be a life-changing event.
100%. And the disaster could be any type, financial,
Yes.
mental, personal, physical.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're giving them confidence, so they have confidence when they're in an emergency. So I love that.
Right. And, one of the words that we use a lot is resilience, right?
Yes.
So like being able to bounce back. So
Yeah.
really quick, one of the most boring steps that I have people do is getting physical copies of all their insurance paperwork, their, deed to their house, their birth certificates, all of that stuff, right? Marriage certificate, all of that, and having physical copies in a fireproof and waterproof envelope in your go bag and in your stay bag, so that you aren't relying on the cloud if you have to prove you're married to your husband or your partner, or you prove that you're your kid's parent, right? So that you have all of that, or to prove that you even can go to your house. During the CERT training, the firefighters were talking about how if you don't have proof that you own that house, they won't let you in if it's still an active scene, and you might need to get medication or something. And so we live our lives on the cloud, but have physical copies of important papers with you, because bureaucracy is not going to end with a disaster. It's just going to get worse.
It does. Well, they talk about that 8 years to build a home, to get approval to build a home in California, whereas like Florida, it's 8 months. I mean,
Wow.
that is a huge difference. And so, I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And moms, I hope that you have a little bit of fire, at least in you, to say, you know what, I need to get some help, because Here Comes the Apocalypse with Jennifer is wonderful and so necessary. And not enough people are talking about it. And so I think that making sure that you're prepared is so important. And so please reach out and contact her and see what you can do to get even just a little bit more prepared. Go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.